necessary, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Chief, if you would, if you'd start us off with a pledge of allegiance, please.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beverly, would you record the attendance, please?
Board President, all board members are present.
Thank you, Beverly. This moves us to item 4, the adoption of the agenda and the approval of the minutes of the financial statements. You have received the agenda for tonight's meeting, November 16th, 2020, as well as the minutes for the regular Board of Education meeting of October 26, 2020, and the financial statements for October of 2020. All these are for your consideration for approval. Is there a desire by anyone to have these read in their entirety, or are there any comments or questions? There being no request or additional comments, I will entertain a motion to approve in a second.
Make a motion we approve. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And those are approved. This gets us to item 5, Path of Pride, and I'll turn the program over to Dr. Cofield.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to everyone on our staff and at the schools that helped us put together this morning's recognition of so many of our students and some of our staff and some other things. I thought that was a great morning, and we have not been able to do Path of Pride as much as we had normally do because of COVID and those guidelines. So it was really neat to get everyone together this morning, and a special thanks to all those people who, of course, always do a lot of work to make that stuff come together and look so easy. There is a lot of work that goes into that, so those people know who they are. So I very much enjoyed that this morning. Moving on to personnel recommendations. I think there are 2 recommendations in front of you tonight. Katie Cardwell, begrudgingly we're accepting Katie's resignation as our career coach at Pelham High School. Katie's lives in Pelham. She's going to focus on being a mom. We're going to miss her, but she has been very engaged with us in helping to find a replacement. We are posting that position. We posted that this week. So item number 1 is the resignation of Katie Cardwell. Item number 2 is to employ Rachel Parker as our payroll manager. Rachel is here with us tonight. She is a citizen of Pelham. She has 2 kids that go to our schools. She spent, I think, the last 11 years in payroll at Mountain Brook, the last 4 years or so being in charge of payroll at Mountain Brook. So local person, kids in our school, has lots of experience. So we really looking forward to having her on board and her being able to meet some of our staff tonight after the meeting. So 2 recommendations related to personnel.
Thank you, Dr. Cofield. We have the superintendent's recommendations, and we will entertain a motion to approve in a second.
Motion to approve.
I'll say,
It's been moved and seconded. We are under discussion.
do we really have to accept you?
I know she'll be successful in her new role. She'll be great.
Very much so. I think we all want to thank her for the work she did for us.
Absolutely.
She was an all-star. Did great work for us. But we'll find a good one to come in. We have every confidence in that. Would like to welcome Rachel. Where did she go? She's over there. Oh, okay. Good to have you come home. Anything else? There being none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously.
There are 6 items under new business. Items 1 through 3 for your consideration to vote. Items 4 through 6 we'll be reviewing after you have an opportunity to vote on items 1 through 3. Item number 1 is to make an adjustment to the extraordinary compensation for this year. We had budgeted a certain amount, and as you see in your recommendation, there is a recommendation to increase that. So item 1 is to approve the adjusted extraordinary compensation. Item number 2 is to approve the attendance policy for remote learners. This is something, as we look at our adjustments for the second semester, we really feel like we need. Just to clarify, we already got a few questions about this at the meeting the other night. There is, we have thrown out some guidelines that people should expect to spend 35 to 40 minutes per class, but this policy is really about making sure that kids are keeping up. The only thing that will trigger us is if a kid is not keeping up with their schoolwork, which will then trigger us to check their time. And so this policy is there basically to make sure that kids are engaged and that they are, if they're going to be a remote learner, that they're actually keeping up with their work. And if we don't hear for a child for a certain amount of time, then the parents have to be responsible and make sure we understand why they are not doing their work. So this is a policy that we feel like is needed for the second semester to bring some accountability to remote learners. The great majority of our kids are doing fine as far as attempting to do their work, and their parents are doing fine as far as trying to make sure everybody, all we're looking for is good effort. So this is for that small, very small percentage of students who we just need to hold accountable. So that is item number 2. Item number 3 is a resolution that's required by the State Department. The resolution reads, now therefore be it resolved that at its regular meeting on the 16th, the execution of this resolution shall be evidence that the Pelham Board of Education approves the rezoning of neighborhoods for elementary school enrollment. As I mentioned to you several times, we are not approving which neighborhoods that we're going to be rezoning. That is for a future decision after much more discussion. But moving kids around impacts state dollars. State money follows the kids and their enrollment. So anytime you're going to move kids from one school to the other, they want to make sure that the Board of Education is aware of that and approves of any kind of rezoning. So it really is just taking care of the paperwork and the things that we have to send in to get blessed by the state. So items 1, 2, and 3 is for a vote and for your request for your approval. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cofield. Anybody need a clarification on any of those items, or wish to have any of them voted on separately?
I would like a clarification on the attendance for remote learners.
Sure.
For a student who decides to or has to go remote learning for quarantine reasons, does that also apply for them?
I'm thinking that it would, that if a student did go to quarantine for say 14 days after 3 to 4 to 5 days of no activity, and after attempts to reach out, if we saw no activity from that child, I would think that we would treat that as a normal absence from your normal work. So I don't think we've actually thought about that, but that would be my answer to that. Whether it's full-time remote or going to remote in a quarantine situation, the kids have to keep up.
Thank you.
Floyd, you got a comment on that?
Yeah, the parent can still submit the note saying that it's excused absence though in that case, due to illness.
Okay.
So just to repeat in case people were watching, so what Floyd was saying, that if a kid is ill, quarantine for 14 days and there's illness involved and they can't do their work, that's when they submit their work saying the child is ill, so the school knows, okay, we know that for the next 3 to 5 days or whatever, we shouldn't expect any work. So it's just a matter of keeping communication between the home and the school, so everyone's on the same page about while we're doing work or while we're not doing work. So appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve in a second. So approved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If being none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes 5-0.
A couple of policy things that we want to review with you tonight. None of these are up for board vote tonight. They are for consideration and contemplation and all those sorts of things. Item number 4 is about attendance zone changes for 2021, 2022. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you. It is very brief, so you can either follow along here or I think you have that in your notes as well. This is the same PowerPoint that we shared with the community the other night. Many of you are aware of this. Some new to the board, though, may have not been here when we made some of these changes. It may bring a little clarification. So why are we even talking about zoning? We've grown a little over 12% in the last 5 years. Our enrollment of 3,400 students compared to the fall of 2015 when we were just over 3,000. Our elementary schools have reached facility capacity. We have the construction of 11 new classrooms will be completed at Pelham Oaks, ready for next school year. And I think that the board should be appreciated for planning appropriately to ensure that classrooms are in place to handle our growth. Our school system has not had to install many trailers for several years for kids to go to class. And so we have classrooms that are built, will be built, and are ready to be moved into starting next school year. Early on when we did our first zoning, or we went into 2 K-5 schools, our goals were simply stated as this, that it will reflect the nature of our community as a whole while improving efficiencies in transportation and considering future growth and development of the city. We looked at student demographics, building capacity, geographic areas. This was a huge conversation when we first started the school system in our first couple of years. It was a lot of discussion, a lot of comment. You know, we used to be a K2 and a 3-5. We made the decision to go to 2 K-5 schools. All of these things were considered at that time. So our history, Oaks and Ridge were established in 2016-17 as 2 K-5 schools. We rezoned for the first time 2 years later. So here we are again 3 years later. This will be our second rezoning. And again, it does coincide with the classroom additions at Pelham Oaks. The first draft initial plan that we have put together is to rezone the students in the following neighborhoods: Brookshire, Creekside, Highland Lakes, Ivy Brook, King Valley, and Brookshire again. Did not have it twice. This will rezone approximately 100 students from Ridge to Oaks. All other neighborhood areas in Pelham will remain in their current assigned school zone. And we had originally discussed that allowing students in the identified neighborhoods to self-transport and stay at Pelham Ridge would not be an option. Just know that, of course, that is up for discussion. I'm not hard on anything. Everything's up for discussion. That seems to be a point of contention. Do know that when we rezoned the first time several years ago, that we did allow self-transportation to take place in K through 5. There were a couple of factors there. First of all, we'd only been as 2 K-5 schools for 2 years, and so now we were doing our first rezoning when you people were nervous about that. But also, we had a lot more wiggle room related to facility capacity. Not quite as much this time. So if we did that plan, here would be the results of those numbers. We would have 764 approximately students at Pelham Oaks, 744 at Pelham Ridge. Both buildings would be at or around 90% building capacity, and our trying to look at our demographics and trying to make sure that we have 2 equal type schools. Our poverty rate measured by free and reduced lunches would be a 6-point difference of 43% and 37%. That is a percentage that we have been in that window every year that we've been here. We're always constantly looking at the data and the information. This is a proposed time frame. We had a community meeting. Today's a Monday. We had a community meeting last week, last Thursday. I thought it went really well. I thought our parents had a lot of good comments, a lot of good questions. There were questions about zoning. There were questions about COVID and some of the things that we were doing. We shared this plan. We listened to their concerns. We'll discuss some of those here in just a second. I do want those who are watching that the place to go if you want to provide feedback, if you want me and the board to get that feedback, is to our website and email PCS feedback PCS@pelhamcityschools.org. Again, that's PCS feedback@pelhamcityschools.org. All responses or comments to that email will be shared with myself and all board members. So we have a lot of time. My proposal is that by the end of January, we would come back and vote on this. Don't have to do it by January. I would think by February it would be a must because we need to communicate to people and lay out, but that is the current timeline, is to try to get it done at our January meeting. So, board members, I have put in front of you, I want to open it up for discussion and questions. But I have put in front of you a couple of things. You have a map that's in front of you. Also, well, this was there earlier. Oh, there it is. So this is what our current map looks like. You can see it up on the TV screen. This is on our website if you go there. Just a kind of a quick update when we zoned the first time. We were really looking at the 31 corridor, the Highway 52. That's originally where we were looking at zoning. Fortunately, the numbers really didn't work, but this is the area, I don't know if you can see my arrow. This area right in here to the very south west of Pelham are the areas you see there in the orange, which were, when we first did this, was originally zoned for Pelham Oaks, but when we couldn't make the numbers work, we began looking at south of 52 and west of 31. So these are areas that are currently zoned for Pelham Ridge, and truthfully, these are always the areas we knew when we began to grow, we had to move. These were the areas that we thought that we would be targeting when we rezoned. So that's just in general a look of where we currently are. And then you have now in front of you on a piece of paper this same map that's sitting there in front of you. So if you want to look at your paper copy or if you want to look it up on the screen, it's kind of your choice. But this is the proposal of if we enacted the plan that has been suggested related to the neighborhoods. Basically, if you start at the very bottom of the page and you work your way and you're west of 31 and you see Creekside and Holland and Holland Lakes, that is the area, one of the areas to the left or to the west of 31 that we are proposing, that was orange, that we'd be proposing to go to green or to Pelham Oaks. And you keep going up, and then you hang a left on Highway 52. And we will be back shortly. And then you hang a left on Highway 52, and all those areas around 52, whether that be King Valley to the south or Ivy Brook to the north, those are also areas that are currently zoned to Pelham Ridge, and the orange that we are, our first recommendation is to go to Pelham Oaks. I will, to discuss with you, you have some of these sheets in front of you, which you also have in your notebook, but I thought you might want to look at pieces of paper. So these are also with your map. These are the total number of students if we were to zone to Creekside. This is Creekside, Holland Lakes. I think Holland Place is also part of that. Brookshire, Ivy Brook, King Valley. You see there are 103 students. Honestly, I went to Floyd 6 months ago or whenever we started talking about this, and I said, well, I was looking at facility capacity and some of those things, and I said, it'd be great if we could find 100 kids that matched demographically and did some of the things. And these are the communities he brought back to me. There are 103 students. I want to speak to just a second. I've been asked the question about what about rising fifth graders, kids who only had one more year. You can see that in fourth grade there are 12 kids there. I will tell you that I would have no issue if that's something that the board wanted to do, was to allow students who had been at that school to finish their 5th grade year. You're talking about a dozen kids, and we don't know that all 1 dozen of those kids would actually, some may decide to ride the bus to Pelham Oaks. I would probably have an issue if the board said, well, could we just allow all the kids who wanted to finish, because then my numbers probably get below what we probably need to move. So our first recommendation was based on the fact that it's 103 students, which is basically what we were looking for. If you look at non-poverty and poverty, all those things really kind of work. These kids would actually even reduce the gap. There's about a 7-point gap right now between the poverty rates of those 2 schools. This would kind of reduce it to about 5 to 6 points. We have looked at other scenarios. If you looked at the second page, we then looked at, one of the other scenarios that we looked at was what if you moved Stonehaven and Heather Ridge, which on this map are the neighborhoods in the orange, right there behind the green, that's kind of separated from the rest. So we had discussions about that. That was about 117 students. And then, a third option that we've looked at as well is, what if we wanted our map to really look nice, where you came along 52 with Ivy Brook and King Valley, and then you swooped down to get Stonehaven and Heather Ridge. It would all kind of connect, and you left Highland Lakes and all that tied to Pelham Ridge, which would kind of make, if you were just looking at a map, everything would kind of be connected and touch base. The issue is that would be 190 kids. So, we've looked at different things to try to figure out what makes the most sense. And we are still open for suggestions. But first glance, first draft for us was the proposal that we have in front of the board. So at this time, I think I'll just see if the board has any questions or comments, and myself or Mr. Collins could answer that, or if you needed Mr. Collins to go to the TV to point anything out, he could do that. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm just wondering if, looking down the line, a possible future needs to rezone, would there be any advantage to having, I think it was the third example, having these connected, as you were talking about, Vice up there where we have Stonehaven off to the left there.
Now, that's the weird thing about this is the fact that Stonehaven and Heather Ridge seem to be disconnected. And remember, we could swap. We could, if we made Stonehaven and Heather Ridge, move them over to the, made them green, and the other orange in front of it, well, then they're still separated. So the only way that we could, Bob, where we could really make the map make sense is if you connected where it's green, going across 52 with Ivy Brook and King Valley. If you were to come on down and then make Stonehaven and Heather Lane also green, Pelham Oaks, and then you turn Highland Lakes and Creekside and all that orange back to Pelham Ridge, see how that would kind of connect back to the orange, and the other side would be green for Pelham Oaks. That is that third option that's in front of you, or on one of those sheets of paper. The issue of that's about 100. Yeah, so about 190 kids. Now, if we allowed everyone to self-transport, how long? But we run into a real concern about all of a sudden they're hanging out the windows of Pelham Oaks, and Pelham Ridge now has 10 classrooms that are empty. So that's the reason it was kind of hard but we looked at that actually in the last couple of days, or actually starting this morning. We looked at that. So, but you do have those numbers. That's what we were trying to give you an example of what that might look like. Are there any other questions or suggestions or what-ifs or scenarios that you would like for us to take a look at? We would be glad to do that. Floyd has the database where we can identify areas and we can pull out the number of kids, so this is certainly something that we can continue to look at. If the board has anything that they would like for us to look at, we would be glad to do that.
Well, in an ideal situation, you would like to see the map be continuously one color and then continuously another. But to reach the goal that we've always wanted to do with elementary schools, you can't always do that. And these lines, there is no arbitrary line that is perpetual. In 2 years, we can be doing this again, and the lines could change, a lot more. I think all of us think that the growth in Pelham is going to go further and further to the east, which will change that line pretty dramatically. So I think we're just talking about what a temporary zone right here.
Just know that we will continue to listen to any comments that come in or suggestions about how we consider this neighborhood versus that neighborhood. It's as simple as Floyd bringing the database, and we'll look at that and we'll send it back to you. Floyd, is there anything that you want to comment on that we missed or whatever?
I just wanted to mention the scenario we talked about this morning. We were trying to minimize the impact on communities that were already in schools in that area, because we had talked about fitting some communities that would cause a disruption, not at one school, but at both. Basically, students leaving the Oaks, going to the Ridge, and vice versa at the same time.
And that, especially when we were talking about making the colors, making a kind of match, and now you've got 190 kids. Okay, well, could we then go to some other neighborhood and take kids out? Well, then you're really, trying to get things, and look, and,
I'm just wondering what we're setting ourselves up for on down the line when we have to resume it again.
yeah, well, so if you look at that map, what you're setting yourself up for is the people that are orange this time, that would be the next, if the enrollment continues to shift to the east. Now, we don't know, but if that takes place, then the next group, however many years down the road, would be the group of people that were not taken this time. Now, things could change throughout the city, and where neighborhoods are built, all those things, but it appears as if those would be the neighborhoods. But I would say, with both schools being at 90% capacity, us operating 10 to 11 classrooms, I think you're talking about at least 6, 7, 10 years down the road before you have to come back to this, unless we just, really take off. So, but those are always, I guess, good problems, related to growth.
I do think, though, Bob, to your point, I think as long as we continue to do a good job of making sure our community understands the reasons why we zone the way we zone, that we do not want to ever have a have or and a have-not situation.
Right.
As long as they understand that, then I think that the flexibility that I think you just have to have in school systems these days, I think that it will always be okay. I'm not going to please everybody; it's impossible to do that. But I think that's the key: is make sure you do a good job of explaining that to our folks.
Okay, well, we will continue on, and if, again, we will continue to look at the feedback that people suggest. We'll continue to monitor that. If you have ideas, or if you think about something, that, hey, y'all look at this, let us know. We'll be glad to run the numbers for you and get it back to you. And it's just part of the process. Okay, the next thing I want to review is the increased teacher salary schedule for 2021, 2022. I'm going to take a little time going through this. Board members, again, this is in your packet. I mean, not in your packet, on your computer, your Chromebook, or whatever we call that. Or you can, I'm going to go through it on my computer. Let me say this, board members, if you wanted to write this down or keep this in your head, the cost of this proposed teacher pay raise will be about $372,806. That's $372,806. Last year, I had proposed a salary increase for this year that COVID scared us away from. Last year, that pay increase was going to be about $259,500. So I have gotten a little more aggressive because I think I've seen our budgets and our economy now go through a decline, and I am feeling a little more confident now. Sarita, when she goes through these numbers, and she reviews them with, we're going to take some time going through this. She may be in my office scolding me in the morning, so we'll be looking at this, but just know that right now, again, all that's just an estimate, because you never know the teachers the next year and how many you have that have a certain degree or whatever. That's looking at our current numbers. So I want to take everyone through kind of a history. What I have up on the screen and what you have as board members is this is our, in 2017, 2018, this is where we were as a school system when we did a comparison of our salary schedule compared to Hoover and Vestavia and Homewood and Mountain Brook, and we did this for everybody. I highlighted in the yellow Hoover and Vestavia. As you can see, especially when you get here in years 9, 10, 11, 13, we were 9, 11, 17% behind. Our teachers are making that percentage less than teachers in the over the mountain schools. When you look at the masters, it was the same way. When you get into the more experienced, we were over 10% behind. Our salary schedule's up to 14%. That's kind of where we were. We have already taken a couple of steps. We've already increased teacher salaries, I think, twice. In smaller chunks to try and make sure that we didn't make a mistake. And just so that you know, I'm only going to take just a couple of examples. I'm going to start with a bachelor's degree, and I'm going to start at step 1. And you can see, or maybe you can't see, y'all may want to turn and look at the ones behind you, Chief, if your vision is as bad as mine. But we are currently at Pelham, our salary schedule pays $41,623. I am recommending in the green for that to go up to $42,623. There were 2 data points that I used to reset these salary schedules. The median point between what Shelby and Alabaster pay, which is where we were, and what Hoover pays. So I identified where's the midpoint. The second data point I used was 5% below Hoover. So I felt like if I made sure that every point along the way, our teachers were past the midpoint and within 5%, that was pretty significant. When you consider, when we started, we sometimes had teachers at 12 to 15% behind. And let me state this. It has really never been our intention to match the pay of over-the-mountain schools, because this has always been about recruiting and retaining teachers, and we know that there are many, many other things that make teachers love and want to stay in their schools. But we also felt like the closer you got to those areas, then you would at least give teachers an option. So you look at the midpoint, the median point at Shelby County and Hoover was 41,780. We were $157 below that, and to get 5%, we were actually already $1,071. I have proposed a $1,000 raise for our teachers at the very first step with a BS. That will put us right up there with Hoover, because as you can see, under number of teachers there, we have 22 right out of the gate starting teachers this year. Every year we will have beginning teachers. I'm proposing that we get very aggressive with our pay with teachers who are coming right out of college. okay? I'll go to, the second step. We're currently making 45,956. In the green, I'm proposing 46,456. The midpoint was 45,876. We're already $80 over that. We're already $1,900 past the 5% within Hoover, so you can see the raise there is only $500. I'm making the point that this raise is not based on a percentage. It has never been for us based on giving the teachers a 1% raise or a 3% raise. It has always been about where are our gaps, where are we low, and how do we adjust accordingly. Therefore, just like our last pay raise, this is not an across-the-board same raise for everyone. But it is an across-the-board getting all of our people past the midpoint and getting all of our people within a 5% mark. Okay? So, I wanted to make that point so you could see that every thing that we're adding is not the same. I'm going to jump to step 5. Pelham, we're making 50,669 currently. I'm proposing 52,669. That's because the midpoint. We were $1,926 behind the midpoint, and we were $1,671 below being below 5%. Therefore, I'm recommending a $2,000 raise for that step. So I'm not going to go through every step, but I think that you can see by going through that example that what I did with every step of the raise is to make sure that our teachers were past the midpoint and within 5%. And so it's a little different as you go down through there. I did draw the line. You see there's a line here with the bachelors and less than 12 because I really wanted to be aggressive with beginning teachers and the bachelors. I'm going to slide down to the master's level because I really wanted to get aggressive with veteran teachers and a master's degree. Step 6, we're currently making 62,704. I'm proposing 62,452. That's because we were $1,703 below the midpoint, and we were $1,767 below being below 5%. Therefore, I'm proposing a raise of $2,178. Now, you're going to say, well, why all these crazy numbers? I'll show you in a second. I finally wanted to get our add-ons to be rounded to a certain number, so you'll see all that. The bottom line is, I did that for every, and again, board members, you want to go through this, we're just reviewing it, but I'm telling you, every sale almost is, we push them past the midpoint and we push them within 5 points. This area right here are the number of teachers, so there are, let's just look at step 6. They're getting $2,178 raise. We have 21 teachers who would be getting that raise at a cost of $54,886. So I'm not going to go through the EDS and the doctorate. It's all treated the same way, but when you add all that up, there's the $372,806. So what does that mean? Let me go to this next tab. On the left is for a BS, our add-on. If you'll remember, we still use the state matrix as a base pay. It will always be our base pay, and then we have the add-on. I think we're the only school system in the state that does that, and we do that for a reason. We are not subject to the state raise. If the state gives a raise, we give the raise on the state matrix. It's our option whether or not we give it on the local supplement. Our salary schedule has been designed that way from the beginning. It allows us more flexibility, it allows us to be more aggressive in times that we want to be aggressive, but it also doesn't force our hand when the state gives a pay raise. It is applied to the state matrix, but the local add-on is our discretion. So board members, when you look at these documents, on the left is what our add-on was last year. On the right is what I'm proposing that the add-on will be this year. And again, I'm not going to take you through all that, but to the far right are the pay raises. So most of our pay raises are going to be anywhere from about 2 to 4%. Well, about 1.5 to 4%, based on where our teachers are. The last point I want to make, looking at this, so let's look at what that means for where we currently are. This is a bachelor's degree if you accept these recommendations. This is the variance each step along the way of where our teacher salary schedule is compared to the state average. And it's different all along, but on average, our teachers are making 8% higher than the state. This is with the BS. Shelby County and Alabaster, this is the salary schedule that we inherited. They're now on average making 5.6% above that. Hoover, we are now only 3.82% behind where Hoover's salary schedule is on average. Now, there's different ones at different levels. Jefferson County, which is, we were trying to recruit a couple of people a couple of years ago, and I realized how far we were behind Jefferson County. Now we've actually bumped slightly ahead of Jefferson County. A master's degree, 6.5% above the state, 4.6% above our neighbors, only 3% behind Hoover. We have considerably closed that gap if we go there. 6-year degree, 5.5% above the state, 4.3% above our neighbors, a little less than 3% from Hoover. So we could spend hours and hours going through this, going through every step. I hope you've kind of got the gist. It is an aggressive. We've done several things now. We've paid the life. Some of y'all may have to help me. We've done the life insurance for our teachers. I think we've done 2 smaller raises. We've done a lot of mentoring. Shannon sent me something today, the success of our mentoring program, how appreciative our teachers who are getting mentored are. We're providing a lot of stipends for teacher leaders, helping in the schools. We're doing the extraordinary compensation. But the thing that will always be there is the salary schedule, which also makes it the most scary, because you can always back off of the supplements. You can always back off the life insurance. You can always back off the extraordinary compensation. Once you put in a salary schedule, you got to know that you can pay for it. So, but this is our 7th year, and we have been careful and we have been judicious. And again, Sarita may be in my office in the morning, but what I'm proposing to this board is I've looked at the numbers. We've gone through, myself and Sarita, we've gone through and looked at kind of our model budget, what's been coming in, and I think now is the time that we really look at this and try to address this at the first of next year, especially as we begin to look at personnel moves for next year. Any questions about that salary schedule? And there's tons of numbers in there, so if you want to call me or come by and see me or whatever, we can certainly do that.
I'm having trouble finding. I saw it up there and understood it, but I'm having trouble finding it on the computer. Where do we have it in?
It's in your, those sheets. So these are scanned in there. When you get past the zoning, if you kept going several sheets by, you would see all of that. And then I can also shoot you a copy electronically. And because this is a lot to digest, we have plenty of time. Nobody's in a hurry. Come see me. We'll sit down. We'll see Sarita. All those kind of things. We have plenty of time, but that's the reason I want to bring it to your attention sooner rather than later.
So you know I have a question.
Sure. That's the reason I told you how much in the beginning it was going to cost.
I love numbers. Okay, so the teachers would have received this raise this year, right?
Well, we had done something very similar. We looked at the median and we looked at 5%, but we had not quite.
Right.
There were some places we were getting close, but I was a little more aggressive this year and really pushed us past those benchmark points.
So since we didn't spend the $259.5, so I guess my first question is, where did that money go? And now that we're going to be paying almost 50% higher than that, can our budget support that?
I think that Sarita's going to look at that, and and make sure that we have plenty of time to do that. I don't wanna put her on the spot, because if she wants to disagree with me, she's not gonna wanna do that in public, so I think we need to give her time to look at that and not put her on the spot. Well, here's, the money didn't go anywhere because of, you know, we had a really good budget year this year, but the reason we backed off of it last year is because COVID hit in March. We introduced this, I think, at a January or February meeting, and we were getting ready to do all this, and I asked the board to wait because we thought the state was going to give a pay raise. And had the state given a pay raise, it was gonna change, then, say typically if the state gives a 3% pay raise, then Hoover and Mountain Brook and Home and everyone else just adds 3% onto their salaries. So it changed all my numbers, and I was really just kinda wanting to look at that and make sure, you know, well, COVID hit, the state didn't do the pay raise, and so we didn't do anything, because everyone was scared to death of our budgets now, so we just kind of backed off. And you know, our reserves went up this year because we didn't put in some of the expenditures that we had planned because of COVID. And our expenditures went down last spring because schools weren't open. And also we've had $1 million worth of COVID relief money also come our way. So some of the expenses that we thought would have cost us money related to COVID, we didn't have. So, but again, this is not a one-time. We can't look at this as, oh, we got the money right now. This is which is where you're going.
Yes.
This is a long-term commitment, which is the reason we create that model budget. We do the yearly budget, but we do that model off to the side because, I'll give you an example. Shannon wrote a grant for $40-something thousand that we got from the state related to reading materials. Holly writes a grant, catastrophic funding to help with special ed. We get some of these funds in that lowers our annual budget, but when we're building a model, I don't count on those. We go ahead and plug those numbers in, just like we didn't get any help. And so I'll tell you that when I plug this into our model, I think it works.
Okay.
But Sarita needs to absolutely verify that, and we need to spend some time looking at that and all those kinds of things. And we have plenty of time.
Thank you.
This is badly needed. You know, we need to be competitive with our neighbors. We may not be able to pay as much as all the rest of the over the mountain cities. It was one thing that I've tried for years for the city to pay attention to. And they do salary studies, but they go all over Alabama to other little cities, the same general population. We don't compete with them. And we don't compete with Auburn or Madison or Bay Minette for teachers.
Right.
You know, we compete in the Metro Birmingham area. And, you know, like I've been saying, first day I came on the board, until we get our salaries up where we are competitive, and we're getting there, we're gonna have a problem.
You know, I think the only really concern that I have right now is the unknown with regard to COVID-19 and how it's gonna affect, you know, the local economy, the state economy, et cetera. And I mean, there's no way to look into the crystal ball and know what's gonna happen with that. But I do think that that's something that we need to constantly monitor and be aware of, because I think that could change, you know, our thoughts on this a pretty good bit. We won't be the only people in that boat, though, if that does happen. That aside, if you look at, I guess I'm gonna go way back right here. When we first started looking at this, I mean, it sure would be a lot easier to do and to digest if it was just a 3% raise across the board up there. But that really didn't work for us. It really doesn't get us where we need to get to as far as getting the money to the people that need it the most, because the salary schedule that we inherited was all over the place. I mean, it really made no sense. And Dr. Cofield has worked extremely hard to try to get those things balanced out a little bit and really do surgical strikes to get money into these positions that enable us to systematically cut through this to where, I mean, we're just as Chief is saying, we're on the cusp of being very competitive with best when we don't look in rearview mirrors and we just focus on being Pelham. It is important to strive to keep upping that salary level, because we ask a lot of our people, we really do. I mean, and part of the Pelham way is we want you to be pretty special at what you do, and to do the best possible compensation that we can is only right to do that. So I think all this has taken a lot of time, and it's very important work, and I think it approaches it in a way that is going to enable us, unless there's something that comes out that we just can't control, like COVID-19. It just enables us to just keep chipping away at this to the point where we're gonna get our salary structure where it's gonna be competitive with anybody.
I think that's a fair worry. Just to kind of summarize, you're always going to lose a few teachers to different places. Most of the time, teachers change jobs not because of money, but because of other factors. You know, where do they live? Where do their kids go to school? Where are their friends? Lots of these kinds of issues. We have lost a couple of teachers, some disgruntled, but we have lost a couple of teachers where we know their heart was in Pelham, we know that they really wanted to stay, but when you're really good at your job, other people also want you, and the fact that you can, especially if you live in the north side of Shelby County, it is no problem to drive to Hoover or some of these places. So,
Well, and the disparity was much greater than.
yes, when you were talking, yes, in the beginning, when you were talking about I can go and make 12% more and I'm getting close to retirement, and, well, all you can do is say, I understand, but when you're within 3% and you can give them a supplement for being a mentor, and you can give them a supplement for being a lead something, and you can do a couple of other things, some of the things we're doing, all of a sudden now, maybe people don't even look. And it's never, if we try to go recruit teachers from Jefferson County to come down, that's a losing proposition. We've always said that what we've got to do is make sure the best teachers in Shelby County want to come to Pelham. And so that is, to me, our focus is how do we keep the very best here, or maybe even attract some other people here. So
If I can, I also think it's important to underline again, the incentive pay, which I think is a little bit unique for us. I think it is, and how important it is. I think all of us saw the report that Shannon shared with us today. That it really had some great comments in there. The lead teachers that we have. This is all gets back to collaboration, which I think this incentive pay really pushes and gives us a really good collaborative effort that we compensate. And I think it's fair to do that. So I think that's an important part of evaluating our pay scale.
all right, so lots of information. We have plenty of time. Just get with me, get with Sarita. I want you to feel good about what we're doing. I want you to feel comfortable. The last thing that I want to share with you as a matter of policy is the other proposed salary schedule change is related to our bookkeepers. As we were exploring the payroll position, Ms. Parker she'll be on a 12-month exempt position, but as we were going through and Sarita and I were talking about payroll, and we began to kind of look at our salary schedule, so there are some proposals that I'm also proposing for next year. This is the very last document, or maybe the next to last page in your notebook or on your computer screen, but it is related to bookkeepers. That is an area that when I looked at it, our bookkeepers are probably not where they need to be, especially when you look at other systems. So I am proposing a pay raise for bookkeepers for next year, about a 10% pay raise for bookkeepers, which they're making at the beginning of our salary schedule about $34,000. At the end of our salary schedule, step 10, they're making $43,000. So I am suggesting that with also an $1,800 add-on for a degree. The other thing that we realized is there was a huge gap between our school bookkeepers and our central office administrative assistants, especially related to the bookkeeping position. So I am creating a new salary schedule for the central office bookkeeper that is not quite as high as the administrative assistant, but is somewhere in between where the school bookkeeper is. And so you see, that salary schedule is basically what the school bookkeeper makes with the addition of $6,000 and a 3,600 add for a degree. Our central office would be just our administrative assistant or the board of superintendent. That salary schedule would remain the same, although it does have the $3,600 degree add, which is where our current system is. The only person that would be on that would be Ms. Beverly. She, of course, does have a degree. The only other change is the supervisors and the manager. It's just right now our transportation supervisor, supervisor of trades and maintenance, the payroll manager would be going on this salary schedule as I recommended tonight, where Mrs. Parker would be paid. And all those positions are exempt positions, making somewhere between, at the beginning of the pay scale, 57, at the end of the pay scale, 66, unless you had a degree, which we would add $3,600. So those are all out there for your review as well. Again, not asking you to vote, and I think I've shared some of those studies with you, looking at our bookkeeper pay compared to other people, and that's, again, something if you have more questions about, would like to see more data, more information, I'll be glad to share that with you. So those are three pretty big items to put on your radar: zoning, a teacher salary schedule, teacher pay increase, and also the smaller one is related to our bookkeepers at schools and in our central office. Oh, I gotta keep going, don't I? All right, so I gotta find the stuff. Okay, my superintendent's report, just a couple of things, unless some members of my staff have something to add. The traffic flow at Pelham High School will be changing soon. We met with the contractor last week. If everything goes as planned, we will be sending out some communications maybe this week to change the traffic flow after Thanksgiving. However, if things don't go as planned from the contractor's world, and there's just a couple of issues they're trying to get resolved, we're not going to be in a hurry. We could always change that at Christmas. So I think we'll be making that decision the next day or so as we get an update. I think we're supposed to get an update on Wednesday. That is going to look really nice as we go around Pelham High School, and the road looks great, and the sidewalks are in, and the lighting's in. The hard part's going to get everybody to start changing what they've been doing for since 1970, which is going in a certain road. Biscuits the first morning, come sit up on the roof with me at Pelham High School, and we'll watch the fun, the traffic. But,
could the goal be lower? I tried climbing that roof about 20 years ago. It's not easy.
Prayers for Mrs. Kill on the first day of the traffic flow change at Pelham High School. I will probably take the day off on that day. All right, so the COVID instructional choice applications have been sent home. We're asking everyone to have that back to us by November the 18th. I think that we will be sending out a reminder tomorrow, asking people who are going to be choosing a remote learning option. We'll be doing that, sending that out as a reminder tomorrow. School board members, I just want to remind you that we have some visits. If you would like to go visit the schools, I think tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock at Pelham Oaks, and at 10:30 Pelham Park Middle School. On Thursday at Pelham Ridge at 9 o'clock, and at Pelham High School at 12:30. This is just for you to meet, walk around the principals, see some of the things that they've done related to procedures and the way schools have changed. It gives you an opportunity just to talk with them and see some of the things and listen to them instead of me about things that are going on and some of the challenges that they faced. And I believe, Coach, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cofield. This gets us to public recognitions. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to address the board? Being no one, we'll move ahead to board comments.
I have a question related to COVID. The funds we received, I guess through the CARES Act, there was a deadline coming up that we had to at least allocate that money. Have we done so?
We have done so. Sarita, I'll come up here late at night to get something done, and Sarita's in there in the office with this look of exasperation as we're trying to meet all of the guidelines. I want to make a comment on that. There was a report that was sent out of all the counties who had not spent their monies. I think the deadline's December the 31st for the first wave.
Well, we have to have our final request in by next Monday.
Okay, our final request in by next Monday, but that deadline to spend by December the 31st. And so that sounds great, but when people throw lots of money at you with very specific guidelines, that is not as easy as it seems, without you just wasting lots of dollars. And I think that's the reason you see across the state, they'll put out these reports about all these counties who have not spent their money yet. Well, everybody's trying to figure out how to meet all these federal mandates and spend this money. Because you could go spend it now. But you try to be very judicious and look at all the things that you can do. But we have a plan. We have a plan to send ours, to get ours spent out. I'm looking at Sarita for some type of head movement at this point. I think we're well ahead of the game. We've moved as many funds as we can and around for like nursing and all the things that cover things that we're paying for, in addition to all the things related to health, supplies, extra nurses, sanitation. We bought all the spray, the big packs that the custodians use and the bus drivers use and all that. I mean, we have bought a boatload of stuff. Sometimes I'll church will come and say, hey, we'd like to donate some face masks. I'm like, are you kidding? I mean, we've got face masks in boxes for years to come. I appreciate it, but, all those things, I think we're in pretty good shape. Sarita, do you want to speak to that at all?
Matter of fact, I've got a form I need you to sign before we leave today, where we have spent almost every bit of the devices money that, and the state, or the news, they'll report the money hasn't been spent. In reality, most people have spent it, they just haven't turned in their request yet, or we've sent in our request and the state hasn't sent us a check yet, because they cut us off at August 31st. Well, you can't request money again until November 1st, because they're closing out their fiscal year, the state of Alabama. So I've got $106,000 that I requested at the end of August that we haven't gotten yet. So that's kind of misleading when the news says that, because a lot of people have requested it, just haven't received the check yet, or we've been told to wait, and now we've had to wait, now we've got to hurry up and request it by next week. So that being said, the devices amount is pretty much spent. We got $300 we still need to spend there. The nursing, the health and wellness is concerning a little bit. I found out today one of the plans that we wanted to do, we will not be able to do. So we're going to have about $100,000 we need to spend within the next week. Or obligate, let me just say that way, obligate.
And that original allocation was like
360
60 or 90 something. So there's like 3 or 4 different waves of funds, and they all have different deadlines.
323, 737.
Okay.
And, we could pay our nurses starting, September, because that's when our new contract started. So September, October, November, December, we could pay our nurses, and then we could do contract nurses, and we've done that. But there's only so much of that you can spend. And like I say, I've done a calculation of how much we'll spend until December, but we still have about $100,000 we're gonna have to figure out. I know some of the other districts bought like these walkthrough probably never have to use it again. So we just. I
How
think
many
we have
additional
fun with
nurses
supplies.
you've got, how many contract nurses helping?
4.
So we've added 4 nurses to get through. So we put a lot of extra resources, in the buildings, lots of new, it's just a matter of working through
You
that.
know, one of the things was, it was almost 30,000 where, Floyd had the air purification, put in all the air conditioner units. You know, that's.
We actually have a huge document where we began the planning, where we planned it, pretty massive of everything and trying to existing up. We can share that with the board as well.
Yeah, I just know it's a use it or lose it situation. I don't want to lose it.
No, I get it. We'll don't worry, we'll get it spent.
Let me know if I can help.
All right.
The problem is, you know, they give you this much money and they say you can spend on this, and this. And what, some of it was, what, specimen, like if we wanted to do COVID tests. No, we don't wanna do that. We don't want that responsibility. So.
Yeah, so there are a lot of issues that are, again, you got a lot of federal laws, and here's what you can spend the money for, and so we have to make a lot of decisions. Especially when you're used to being very efficient and not spending money except for things that you really need. And then all of a sudden, you just wish they would have a little more flexibility. I was telling, some of these programs that involve kids where they depend on fundraisers or ticket sales to make money for the programs, whether it's athletics or band or the drama club. Well, now because of COVID, you don't have those funds. But guess what? It's not allowed with federal dollars to provide money for the drama club or for the band or for whatever, but these are the kinds of programs that are getting really hurt because all the things that they've done to raise money has been taken away. But nobody's, wants to think about or give us the kind of flexibility. So those are the kind of things that gets a little frustrating, but we'll call you, Angie, if we need some help spending some money, we'll do it.
Do you have any new updates on engineering? Any feedback from the some students?
No, the applications are due, the 18th, that's Wednesday. We've had a lot of conversation. I think we had a lot of really good questions the other night, at the parent meeting. I thought that went well. That is still one of the areas where we get a lot of questions. We've already made some changes at the middle school where the teachers will be responsible for the content and the testing, but at the high school, we're staying the course, and we're gonna try to continue to improve as the teachers try to supplement that material. We hope that more people we get back for traditional learning, that will make it easier. What we are finding in the last week or so, and honestly, we've seen the largest spike related to COVID in this past week that we've had. Our quarantines are up. I think our middle school and high school between 5 to 9% in the percentage of students who are quarantined in this past week. Our COVID positive numbers are still down, but they're up from where they've been. So we're at about 1% of students who are COVID positive at the middle school and the high school level. Well, that every week has been like 0.2 or 0.3. So we are now actually, I've told our staff that we're actually seeing at the beginning of this, last week and the beginning of this week, really what we had anticipated all year long, to be honest with you, is the massive number, well, I don't say massive, quarantine numbers more in line with, I have Julie and her team do a great job. They keep a database, and I look at it every day, and that database had around 40 to 60 kids pretty much, and now we're around 140 something. And so some of the issues related to why we felt it was needed for the content to stay consistent, whether at the high school level, especially, whether you're remote or traditional, because we needed a consistent approach related to kids' grades and the importance of GPA related to scholarship and job applications and awards, and there are so many reasons why, which is the reason we felt like it was the common curriculum was needed at the high school. And just the fact that if the kids at home are doing one thing and the kids are at school are doing something else, that would be problematic at the high school. And we've debated that over and over and over again, but at the end of the day, I swear our teachers feel that where we need to be. I don't think that anybody thinks that's the greatest and most wonderful thing. Our choices were between bad and worse. But we do think we've made a lot of progress. I think our teachers are getting a lot more comfortable about how to supplement that. And I think especially if we could get more kids to come back to traditional, it would really help. Now, that's going to be up to the parents, and we'll see. And I don't know how this recent spike, not just in our schools, but community-wide, I don't know how that's going to impact the surveys or what's in the minds of our parents. But I feel good about our plan. I feel good that our people feel good or comfortable where we're going and what we're going to be trying to do. And I think now at this time, Sharon, it's about, well, let's see where the numbers are. Once we get the results back on the 18th or the 19th, we will spend from November the 18th to 19th to before Christmas finalizing our plans and getting that resent out to the community. I wouldn't expect any changes except for the elementary level. Depending on the numbers, it could change staffing assignments. Because if we have a huge increase in remote learners or a huge decrease, then we've got to change the number of teachers who are assigned to be remote teachers versus traditional. The middle school and the high school, I don't expect the numbers to change a lot, although it could. But we will see. So that's kind of where we are. I think that where we are is we have found peace at what we're doing, whether we're all happy with it or not, but we feel like now is not the time to kick over the ant bed. That's the example that was used to me by a group of teachers, that we're finally getting our stride a little bit. Let's don't kick the ant bed over. Let's keep going. We've made a lot of improvements, and I think that was a wise analogy, and I think that's where we are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other comments? I just would like to say that the road looks great around the high school. We drove the other night when we left. The lighting is really first rate. Kim, you are going to have to increase your leaf blower budget by a considerable amount.
Yes, sir.
But it really is a great asset to that school. No other comments?
I have another comment.
Yes.
I just want to say that today was the kind of day that I love being a school board member. Starting this morning, acknowledging our Character and Action Award students from each school, acknowledging our AP teachers and even the football team for area champions, and then coming here tonight and being able to acknowledge the efforts of our employees with compensation is one of the things we promised 7 years ago as an inaugural board. And just seeing the trajectory in the right direction feels good. So thank you for that.
Well, I mean, thank y'all for that, and all of our staff members and all the people that are making that happen. Yeah.
Other comments? All right, I do need to announce that our next regularly scheduled meeting will be January 25th, 2021. The emphasis there is 2021.
Thank God.
Yes. And as a board, we want to wish everyone a very happy and prosperous holiday season. Thanks to all our people for getting us to this point. Certainly wouldn't have happened without your dedicated efforts. There's no question about that. those thoughts in mind, I will entertain a motion to adjourn and a second.
That's a move.
Second.
So move second, all those in